Hello, everyone. I'm Roxanne, and this is Everything About Hallmark. And my guest tonight is Morgana Wyllie. And we're not going to keep her too long because she's going on a little vacay, right?
Yes, I am. I'm going home for Christmas. Very Hallmark of me.
I know. And I want you to tell me about your town or your little city or whatever it is.
Yes, well, it's okay. So it's definitely a town. When I grew up there, I think the population was 5,000 people, and now it might be 8,000. But the internet might prove me wrong. But I think
Okay.
it's around 8,000 people, and it's this little farming town in rural Alberta. And I grew up. My family has a dairy farm. And so I grew up around all of the animals, farming, and plaid, everything that you would expect from a Hallmark movie. And then, yeah, I haven't been home in a couple of years because of the pandemic. And so my partner and I are going to be going home to see my parents and grandparents. And there's so many new babies as well. But yeah, it's a dream to go back in the winter. There's snow everywhere. It's not like Vancouver or Los Angeles. There's lots of snow. I think it's minus 42 Celsius right now.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
I can't convert. I'm very bad at math, so
Yes,
I wish I could convert it to Fahrenheit, but it's really
it's
cold.
cold.
Very cold.
Now, you're going to fly in? Is that what are you? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we're
So
flying in.
they don't have to like defrost the plane?
Sometimes they do. When you're
Okay.
leaving the airport, the closest airport is Edmonton, Alberta. And so when you're leaving the airport, it's where the Oilers play. When you're leaving, they have to
Yes.
de-ice the plane. And that's a
Okay.
whole process where they get this weird hose out on the
Yes, yes.
tarmac and you sit there for about 30 minutes while they're de-icing it.
Do you think that they could ever film maybe a Hallmark movie there?
That's a great question. So, really fun fact,
Okay.
most of our Hallmarks are filmed in the summer.
Yes.
And so summer in Edmonton is pretty hot and dry, not quite
Mhm.
as luscious and green as Vancouver. So I'm sure that they could, but it would not have nearly the feeling of the lush green, sort of vibrant, uh, coniferous feeling that
Okay.
the
I got
hallmarks here
you.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just so many cute little streets and things like that in Vancouver and the area that a lot of our movies are filmed in. So I don't know that Edmonton has anything that quite competes. It's sort of 90s feeling there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I
in
mean,
my town, I'm sure we could. That
yes.
should be something that we do.
Yes. Yes. You should push for that champion for it.
I think I might have to.
I live in a small town and I was
Yes.
walking down the street and I was shopping in the little shops and they blast like the Hallmark. They blast the music and I'm like, I'm in a Hallmark movie. No wonder I love Hallmark so much.
Oh yeah. What's the architecture like where you live? Is it kind of classic and old school, or is it a little more contemporary?
It's an old Italian town. It's
Amazing.
this I live in New Jersey in the USA, and it's the smallest, well, not the smallest, I'm sorry. It is the most Italian town in the US, but it's also the blueberry capital of the world.
Wow.
I know.
That's wild.
I know
That's crazy.
on our little flag and a police car and stuff, they have a blueberry.
That's adorable. So my town is the most Ukrainian town maybe in the world. We have the world's largest pisanka, which is a Ukrainian Easter egg that's got
Uh-huh.
all of those sort of geometric designs.
Oh.
So I feel like you and I were just right on the
Oh,
same.
that's kind of cool. I love learning about other places. I was saying that to Wes when he was on. He was telling me about St. Catharines, and I'm like, I'm gonna go visit. Like, I
Yeah.
want to explore. There's like a lot to see, and it's like right there next door to me. So
Yeah.
I'm making my little wish list. It's just the pandemic stinks, right?
Oh,
Every
it's
time you
awful.
think we start, then something happens. So tell me about how you even got into acting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started dancing. I was that sort of 3-year-old skipping around in my little ballerina shoes. And my parents, I'm very grateful that they were able to put me into classes at a young age. And so it was a lot of ballet and then musical theater. And there was one point where one of my dance teachers took my mom aside and said, you know what? I think you need to put her into acting. She's got a lot of personality and it would be a good outlet for her.
Oh, that was
So
nice.
it was very kind of her. And I think it was a compliment, but
It was.
it was. So I started doing children's theater. And my background is very, very heavily in the theater area, the theater realm. I've been doing film and TV for about 10 years. But on a whole, okay, how old am I now? 21 years of acting in the theater and film
Wow.
as a whole. So, yeah, it feels so integral to who I am because I've been doing it so much of my life. But it really just started like on stage performing, dancing, enjoying that process, and then developing further into the acting side of it.
What was your when you were little, what was your, first, like, play or experience on stage?
You
Do
know
you
what it was? It was Beauty and the Beast,
Of
and
course.
of course it was, and, it was at the Citadel Theater in Edmonton, and it was
Oh,
an ensemble cast, so everyone got to play every part, which I think is really great for kids
yes,
because no one is the star, you're all
yes.
taking turns, and I was the youngest in the ensemble, I think I was 8 or 9,
Wow.
and, there was this big beast headpiece that was made. It's a professional theater company that was putting it all together, and it was so big and incredible, but it kept falling down because I was too little for it. So every time I had a line, I would shove this piece up, like this lion's mane up, so I could say my lines. But I that was definitely the first play that I did.
I like that though, because when they're like younger people are on and things like that happen, and although we're not supposed to laugh because you're serious up there,
So
it's still
serious.
fun. I know it's still fun for the audience. I understand, but that's cute. So you are an acting coach, right?
I am. I also do acting coachings. Yes.
Now, like, is it for a certain age group or
Yeah, so I coach, well, any age really. I
okay.
definitely find that I specialize a little bit more so with the kids and teens.
Oh,
We
nice.
get along really, really well. My maturity is about equal to theirs. And
That's
then I do coach, I coach a number of adults as well. And so sometimes I do audition coaching, which is, getting them prepared for their actual auditions. And then sometimes I do coaching once someone has booked a role. So I had
mhm.
a young lady of mine, she was doing a Nicolas Cage movie in the Cayman
Oh,
Islands. And so I prepped the whole script with her and we would go through each scene and we would talk about it and we would make sure that she understood how her character was feeling about things. And I think she was about 10. So very smart, and really committed to her craft. But that's something that I'll do with people as well. So sometimes it's helping them get the job and sometimes it's helping them with the job.
so that's interesting. When I was talking to Christian, Cooper, he was talking about some of the roles that he's had in the past when he was younger, and I was asking him, like, how do you prep for something that you're so young that you don't really understand, like, what's going on in the show? And he was
Mhm.
explaining it a little, but I guess that's where someone like you comes in. It really helps them because they only have a 10-year-old. She only has a 10-year-old's experience,
Yeah,
yeah, so
that's
that's
so true.
yeah, that's actually, I don't know. I think it's fascinating because as a teacher, when my children or my students are reading something and then we ask them to kind of like infer, you always have to remember if they don't, it's called, activate your schema. If you don't have that background, how are you supposed to do it? Like, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So I,
Absolutely, and I love that you say my children, I call them my kids, and people are like, "Oh, you have kids?" I'm like, "No, no, they're all my kids. They're all
yes,
my
yes,
kids."
yes, yes.
But that's exactly right, and it's amazing the emotional intelligence that young people have,
Hmm.
and getting to experience that, um, fresh perspective on life, and they're still experiencing things for the first time. Like, you only get to experience something for the first time once.
Right,
After
right,
that, it's, second, third, fourth,
right.
etcetera. So, it's really magical to get to experience that with them, um, and see their perspective on things. And so, oftentimes, they are very astute with the material, and they have, great impulses, or they have a great understanding of it, but maybe they're not able to articulate it, or maybe they're not able to, um, get really specific because, as you know, the most interesting to me, and I'm sure to yourself, the most interesting scenes are ones that are not just the same all the way through. You want to find the changes in the scenes and how the
Yes.
characters are changing and the situation and everything's affecting them. So although they might understand one level of it, you want to help them find those changes so it feels as truthful as possible.
Right. I mean, it's like the rising action within a little scene. We pick that out
Exactly.
when I teach language arts. We pick those things out. So, I mean, I you should come to be a guest in my class. That would help out my students.
I would love that. Oh, I'll get on a plane. Well, I'm getting on a plane tonight, but I'll get on a
Yeah.
plane tomorrow and I'll come on
All
up.
right. Now tell me, I'm excited to hear about I was looking and researching, and I found a play that the critics said that it was done beautifully, and you had to play this really tough part, and it's a play. I believe it was like from you were in the 70s, but I think it was
Yep.
written in the 70s, or am I correct?
We're
It's
talking Seascape with Sharks and Dancer.
yes,
Yeah, so that's a Don Nigro piece, and I think
yes.
you're I mean, I did that play in 2013, so my memory's not the sharpest with it, but I feel like it's definitely pre-90s.
Yes, yes, it's an older one, but it's supposed to be quite, like, exhausting. They said the part that you played was it Jackie? Is that what
It's Tracy.
Tracy, sorry. The part that you played was exhausting, like, very emotional,
Yeah.
and you had to cry, and it was, like, powerful, and, like, and they said you did a great job, so what in the world? Like, tell me a little bit about that,
Oh my gosh, well, what would you like to know specifically? There's so many things I could jump into.
how do you prepare for something like that that's that emotional and you know you're going to have to do it how like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how many nights it was or whatever, but what if it's,
Yeah.
like, so many nights in a row? Like, how do you prepare yourself mentally for something like that?
Yeah, well, so, that's, I guess, the biggest difference between the theater and film world is
Mm,
that with theater, you are, with film, you're shooting out of order, you're shooting little pieces at a time, you take a
right.
lot of I wouldn't say breaks, but there's a lot of stop and start.
Mhm.
We have a term called hurry up and wait, where you hurry up and then you kind of wait, and then you hurry up, and so once you're there, you'll do the scene over again, and then the cameras move around, everyone moves around, and then you do the scene over again. So you're
Oh,
doing
right.
maybe 4 or 5 scenes in a day, whereas with a play, you're
Mm.
doing the whole thing, which is an hour long, maybe
Mhm.
more. If it's Shakespeare, 4 hours long.
Oh,
You're
well.
doing that from beginning to end. And you kind of get on this train and buckle up and you got to go for the ride. Um, so it's a different way of preparing, that's for sure. I personally, especially if there's emotional intensity or vulnerability with specific moments, I try to build that into my preparation. So a lot of it's in rehearsal, a lot of it's working with the director and figuring out what the strongest um, moments that we want to highlight are,
Oh,
but also that discovery that comes through rehearsal, which you don't necessarily get in film and TV. You'll do a blocking rehearsal where we figure out where we're all going to stand and go.
right,
And,
right.
the crew gets to see where we're going to move
Mhm.
around the space and then they can light and set up the cameras accordingly. But for theater, the rehearsal process is so important. And that's one of my favorite parts is that you get to go through this material with your scene partners, with the director, with sometimes an audience. I wouldn't call them a test audience, but that's kind of what they are. They'll sort
Mm.
of sit in before you have opening
Yes.
night and give their feedback, and you get to really explore the moments and see how they affect you with so it's like the preparation and the presence, but you get to do that a lot more before you're on stage for real. And so
Yeah.
with that, I like to really get clear with the moments that build to that emotion. So it's kind of like a domino effect. The first one goes, and maybe you're maybe there's a certain line and that's the first domino and it's not necessarily emotionally loaded, but it tips over the next one and the next one. So as it goes on, it's sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back, either in a line or a look or a physicality. And then this beautiful emotion gets to come up, and it's truthful and it's in the moment and it's unexpected. And there's been times I've been on stage where I'm like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. You kind of get in your head and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not really feeling it. I don't know if I'm going to hit it tonight. And
Uh-huh.
then something just happens and you're moved, and
Right.
it's so real and it's wonderful to that's it's just so magical to be able to do that.
So many actors that do both say the same thing, like, that is what they love the most about being on stage. It's like I guess it's almost like a high, like an excitement that you get off of that, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
so much adrenaline. Your
yeah,
body's like going. And
yeah.
what I think you don't necessarily get this as much in film, but you're right there with the audience. You're on it together. You're on
Yes,
this
yes.
journey with them. If they're laughing,
You
you
hear it.
know it.
Yeah.
If they're not laughing, you know it. If
Yeah.
they're sobbing, depending on the size of the theater, you can hear it. And it's just so personal. And it's such an incredible thing I love going to the theater as well, so
Mhm.
I love to be in the audience and know that no one person is experiencing the same thing. Every single seat has a different view, and no person is gonna get this performance again, just us together, so it's this really unifying, beautiful thing, and I just love it.
Oh,
Oh,
you're getting emotional over
I
it?
am, I didn't realize I was going to,
Oh,
but
no, but that's
it's
so good. Oh.
it's just such a home space, you know, and I wish that with the pandemic, we could have theater as vibrant as it was 2 years
Mhm.
ago because it's an incredible place for people.
And it just started up, and then I feel like here in the States, we have a bit of a setback. There's
Yeah.
an interesting play going on right now, Natasha from, When Calls the Heart, it's called Snowflake, and
Oh,
it's somewhere I think it's in Vancouver. Is it in Vancouver? No, no, it's not. It's out in a special little area in an off of an island or something. Anyway,
okay.
it looks so interesting. I'm gonna find out more about it because I
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
have her on, and I was trying. It's going on now, and I knew I missed my window, so I'm gonna have to do it afterwards because I wanted to hear about it before, but, it's pretty interesting. You're gonna have to look it up when we're
I'm
done.
going to.
You're
Yeah,
going It's called
absolutely.
Snowflake, but it's interesting because of who wrote it, who's directing it. You're gonna see people that you know, and it
Great.
seems I'm excited to learn more about it. I wish I could go, but it's, in Canada and I'm here. But, it's neat because it's unique. It's an outlet, and then, like you said, you feel connected to the audience, so that's totally different, right, than
Mhm,
something that's filmed. Now, you
mhm.
did something else that was really cool, and it's, an animated cartoon, right, called Brogan?
Yes. Yes, yes, I
Okay.
did.
So, and I know that it's an adult, animation, but what about, like, you go from theater, now you're doing something totally different. What is that like? Because I hear a lot of actors find it interesting to do.
Oh, it's fabulous. I love voiceover because I get to be my weird self in sweatpants, no makeup, just, you get to just play and
Mhm.
it's so much fun. And and film is a whole nother kind of fun, but I just really love the weirdness that I get to bring when it comes to animation. And so yes, as you touched on, it's adult animation, which sounds more aggressive than it is. It's just more so that for an adult audience,
Yeah.
similar to Archer or BoJack Horseman or
Yes.
those types of
Yeah.
shows. And what it is it's sort of a parody of He-Man. If anyone's familiar with the iconic cartoon and then
Mhm.
Dolph Lundgren feature film
Yes.
from many years ago, so it's a lot of self-aware humor and jokes that are commenting on the original, which and characters that pay homage to the original, and I love that part of it as well. I think intelligent humor and good writing is really it's just so much fun to work with as a performer for sure.
Do you write? Do you write at all?
I have written a little
Dabble?
bit.
Okay.
I dabble. I wouldn't call myself a
Uh-huh.
writer. I did try my hand at a romantic comedy feature film a few years ago, and I've sort of put that on the shelf. And every so often, I'll pull it out and look at it. So maybe one day we'll get somewhere with that. But
Okay.
I don't actively write.
No? I don't know, I think you would have a cool mind for it. It seems like you would come up with a good story. You're so passionate. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I definitely if I feel inspired, I think I will put pen to paper, but that inspiration is really important to me.
So there's like I'm thinking about, Paul Campbell.
Oh,
He's an
yes.
actor. He's
And
amazing.
writer. And he wrote, An
Yes,
Unexpected Christmas.
yes, which I absolutely loved. And, was it a good time? How could it not have been a good time?
Oh my gosh, it was So much fun on set. I love our director, Michael Robson. I mean, I've worked with him before
Mhm.
on, uh, oh my gosh, I was gonna say Christmas with the Darlings, but it wasn't. It was Always You with
Mhm.
Aaron Krakow, and Tyler as well.
Tyler?
Tyler was
Yeah.
in both of these, and so
Mhm.
I mean, I think Michael's just such a pleasure to work with. He really lets the actors follow their intuition and feel out the characters. It's such a fun set to be on. And then Bethany Joy Lenz is amazing as a lead. How can you not have fun with her in the room?
I know, but I'm laughing because there's this scene, there's so many wonderful scenes. Well, Paul's sense of humor is amazing. Was he on
Yeah.
set? Did you get to see him?
He was not on set when I was there. He may have been
Mhm.
on the other days, but I
Okay.
didn't get to see him, unfortunately.
Now you're okay. So there were a couple of scenes that I love, but the one scene that cracks me up is Bethany. Well, she plays Emily. Emily goes
Yes.
into the kitchen with Jamie, right, to say something. And he goes to eat one of his father's terrible cookies, and she
Yeah.
smacks it out of his hand, and it flies. Was that like
It
improv?
wasn't it had to be there was so many things on the day. I don't know if you remember, yes, absolutely. She is so good at taking what's on the page
Uh-huh.
and really bringing it to life in such a fun way, and, when we're in the office, before she goes in and talks to Daryl about
Yes.
what is his line? It's something like, "Economy plus," like, he's trying to
Yeah.
sell
Yeah.
her on
Yeah. Yeah.
taking but she pulls these Post-its, and it's like the whole thing just goes in this big sort of accordion thing, and
Mhm.
that was completely in the moment, and then everyone loved it, and so she's like, okay, let me try and do that again, and so then it was trying to recreate it for the
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
takes. She's so good at improv and just coming up with things in the moment.
And now, of course, by that time, I had seen you in Christmas with the Darlings, and you're really good. You have a really good role in that,
Oh,
and I
thank
love it
you.
because you have like a lot of screen time, and I'm like,
I
yes,
do.
yes, I love that. And you played a surgeon, right? Where you're a
I
surgeon.
yes, a very young surgeon. I
Yes,
I
you
don't know if
are.
I'd be out of medical school yet, but,
Very
yes.
glamorous, right? I love
Yes.
it. But what in this one, your part was a lot of times you weren't even in the same room, you were on a
I know.
phone.
I think that a lot of that has to do with COVID and COVID bubbles, and that's something that,
Oh,
I've noticed a lot in scripts now where everything will be like FaceTime calls with someone
yes.
or phone calls with someone
Yes.
to try and keep as much distance as possible safely while still moving the story forward and keeping it engaging. But yeah, it's you're absolutely right. It was like phone call, and on the day we were filming, it was like, okay, wardrobe change, next phone call, wardrobe change, next phone call, because I'm in the same location for all of it.
Right.
So it's really easy to just go bang, bang, bang.
Now, that makes does that make it more difficult because you're not there with a person having a conversation?
It
Is
can be. It definitely
okay,
can be. Depending on the day and the schedule, sometimes the other actor is there and they will play it with you
okay,
off camera.
right.
In this particular situation, we were scheduled apart. So I had one of our brilliant ADs, our first AD was doing all the lines off camera. So Bethany's lines, and she did a great job. So, but you don't always get that for
No,
sure.
no.
It can
Well,
be difficult.
it was still funny. You were still really good. I'm like, "You know what? I'm
Thank you.
gonna search her out. I wanted to have you on." I'm like, after I was watching it, I'm like, "Oh." So one of the things I remember when, It Was Always You, with Tyler, that tree house with all those lights, what was that a set or was that a real tree house?
I mean, I didn't get to see it in person, so your
Okay,
guess is as good as mine, but I
okay,
have a feeling that it may have been a set,
okay. But
just
it was
because it's such a unique
and
location,
yes, 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 yes. I
but
was
I would be very curious about that myself.
I'm gonna research it. And then
Yeah.
you're on the dance floor and you're crazy dancing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Nothing like dancing to different music than they use in the final edit. And you're like, okay, I got the beat. Here we go.
Oh,
And then you see the final and you're like, that's definitely not what we were dancing to.
no, really? Oh, that's a
Yeah.
cool story to know. So
Yeah.
why would they make us a music change?
Well, I think it's more so that there's a lot of legal things that have to go
Mm,
through the process
right,
of
right.
approvals before you can actually decide on what's going to be used, and you have to pay for the rights, etc. So
Okay.
usually they don't know until they get to the edit that okay, we've got this song approved and it's, going to work with this. But they'll try and find something that's going to give the idea of it and have a similar tone that they can just use on the day.
Right.
But it might be Beyonce. We're never going to get Beyonce for the final. I wish, but the
You
final edit,
know,
right? You
we had
never know.
Jordin Sparks. That was cool when she was in a
Yes.
Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I thank you for sharing all those little tidbits. I don't want to keep you because I know you have to go somewhere. But is there anything like in the future that we should be looking for that you're going to be in that you can tell us or no?
At the moment, I don't have anything coming up
Okay.
as an actor, but I am going to be producing on a feature film that is going to be filming in March in Prince Rupert, Canada, kind of by the Alaskan border. So
Oh,
I'm really excited to get to do that more intensely than I've been able to before. I've kind of been on the sidelines watching and participating, but this time I'm one of the producers and I've got the weight of the movie on my shoulders along with
oh,
everyone else.
but that's exciting. Can you
Mhm.
explain for us out here that aren't quite
Yeah.
sure what exactly is the job of a producer?
Yeah, well, that's such a good question. And there are so many kinds of
Mhm.
producers, and they all have different jobs.
Okay.
So, an executive producer is usually someone who sometimes they bring financing to a project, sometimes they invest in it themselves, but they are very much part of the overall decision making, but maybe not the day to day stuff. So, an
Okay.
executive producer, and it's different from film to television as well, right? So, feature films are a little different than television. But on a feature film side of things, the executive producer will often possibly be the person who makes the final decisions on decisions like casting or various things, but they're not going to be there in every single nuts and bolts thing, right?
Okay.
Then there's associate producers who are kind of in charge of different areas. So it might be like this person is dealing with all of the contracts for the cast, and this person is dealing with making sure that our budget. We've got a production manager who deals with the budget, but we'll have a possibly an executive producer as well dealing with that budget and the financial side of things. We might have a producer who is dealing with all of our locations and vendors and making sure that that's all good. So it's different from the scale of the project.
Mhm.
If it's a smaller scale, you usually end up doing more things because there's fewer people. If it's a
Wear lots
bigger
of hats.
scale, yeah, exactly. If it's a bigger scale, sometimes less. Right now, I'm really lucky. I get to kind of be part of all of it. So from casting, seeing all the drafts of the
Mhm.
script, we were in Prince Rupert last week and it snowed. It was crazy. It never snows there. Um, but it snowed when we were there. And so we were looking at locations. We were out on a herring boat on the water for an hour and a half each way to look at this particular island. So at the moment, I'm in on everything, but definitely depending on the size of the project, there's just so much to do. It would be really, really difficult.
I mean, I learned like a whole bunch of stuff. You just a whole bunch, as my students would say, a whole bunch of stuff, Mr. N. That was I mean, I love it because I always have it in my head, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
And then I'll see sometimes on projects various names and all the different I feel like you have just as many producers and behind the scenes people, actually more than you have of your cast and crew sometimes.
Oh, often there's a number of productions in Vancouver and the crew is like 300 people.
Wow.
And they just, are
Every
there every day,
run it
making
all.
sure that everything looks as wonderful as it does for the
Is
final
that
product.
I'm sorry, is that what Vancouver is, like, known for? Like, film, plays, movies? I don't know. Is what
That's a great question. I think that our film industry is very vibrant.
Yes,
I would
yeah,
say that our theater industry is less so. There's
okay,
places like in Ontario, we've got uh, different festivals. Like there's a whole Shaw and Shakespeare festival right in Ontario that's quite prolific. Vancouver, we do have fringes and we do have some really great theater companies here, and nonprofit theater companies here, but it's less known for its theater, more so for film.
yes.
Um, and I mean, I'm trying to think. My dad asked me at one point, probably 5 years ago, he's like, well, export of Vancouver. What's the, and I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, I think it's the film industry. It's
Mm.
probably not. It's probably like fishing or something that is less so. But film is such a big part of employing people here.
I think that you're right. I remember Joe was saying something like, because of that industry, everyone is, when something happens, you're like 3 paychecks away from, you know what I mean, not having a home, like, it's so expensive, and just and I guess the industry itself too, if you don't have work in you could.
Yeah, it's
Mm,
kind of wild. It's a bit feast or famine when everything is shut down, like no one's working, and when
yeah,
it's busy, it's impossible to find someone for any given position because
right,
everyone is busy. So we're very lucky that so many productions come up here and film. But at the same time, it's kind of feast or famine at times.
right, and nobody ever thought that it would be like a pandemic and things would get shut down, like, who thinks of that? That's like something you hear back in ancient times, and then I guess, we're all feeling it, but I'm glad that things are, getting back to normal. So,
Yeah.
do you have a wish list before we go? You got a wish list for yourself?
Oh, Oh, I mean, that's a little bit of I feel like again, yeah, speaking to the pandemic is kind of one day at a time
Mhm,
and 1 month at a time, 1 week at a time.
mhm.
Never really know what's going to happen next. Um, I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started, in the moments before we started the live stream, but I would love to have an opportunity to get to be a lead of one of these fabulous movies.
Yes, yes.
There's just so many opportunities up here, and I think that I getting to work with people like Katrina Law and Bethany Joy Lenz and Aaron
Mhm.
Krakow, it's really inspiring because they are so good at taking the work, elevating what's on the page, making these characters fun and accessible and beautiful in their hearts and, in their performances. And so I think that that's definitely something that is on my list of things I'd like to do for
Good.
sure.
That's right, that's right, you have that confidence. So I'm gonna say something, and then I'm gonna just show you some comments real quick, and
Okay.
then you could be on your way. When as me as a viewer, I'm watching a movie, like, with Erin in it, and It Was Always You. She's an exceptional actress, as is Bethany, right? They're on the screen, and then sometimes, and it could be for directing reasons, it could be dialogue, it could be whatever, you would know better. When they're like their it's not their co-star. What is the technical term for, like, a part that you would have, like the role that you play? Is there a name for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, again, in LA, it would be co-star.
Right.
In Canada, we would say like a supporting lead or
Okay.
a day
So
player. Yeah.
the supporting lead comes in and has lines and dialogue or interaction, and all of a sudden I'm taken out of, it's no longer authentic to me. Like, I feel like they're acting, it's not natural. That's never the case with you. You're
Oh,
No, it
Roxanne.
isn't. I'm very serious. You're really good. So I'm watching. I'm gonna watch because you're gonna be in a
Thank
lead
you.
sometime. I'm waiting because you deserve
Oh,
it because you're really good.
well,
So,
thank you.
I'm telling you. And I said wish list because, it's like the end of the year coming around, like,
Yeah.
we start thinking like that. So
Yeah.
real quick, I am
Yes.
going to Janice, I'm going to show what Janice says. She said, "Thanks for the explanation of producers. By the way, Merry Christmas.
Oh,
Happy
thank you, Janice.
Happy
I don't
holidays."
know. And my explanation was, a little bit vague and again,
No,
kind of
no.
all over the map. I'm sure that sometimes the internet is a little more confusing, but
Mhm.
you're most welcome. Merry Christmas, Janice. Thank you.
No, you were good at what you were saying. I'm trying to move up on here. No, I'm glad you shared because I've always I mean, kind of know stuff, but then you don't really know. This is Arlene. She was saying something about plays. The
Oh
emotional
yeah.
structure of the play is ever changing from show to show, and that's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Arlene, I cannot agree more. That's my favorite thing about the theater.
Yeah, she liked. This is Kathy. She says, "Love hearing about the different experiences you've had between television, film, and theater. Which one do you like doing the best? Can you answer
Oh,
that?"
I can, yeah. No question. I mean, if I could do theater for free in a basement for an audience of 1 every night, I would. If I could live my life that way, there's no question I would be doing that. I am just so in love with that as an experience, but I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to do film and, you know, make a living at it. It's not an easy thing to do,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people out here trying to pursue it. So though I love the theater, hopefully one day I can get back to it. But I do, I love it.
I think it's gonna happen. I can feel it. Kathy also said that she loved your name, and her son has
Oh,
the male version of it. So,
amazing. Thank
yeah.
you. I love every time someone has a baby, I say, Morgana is gender neutral, or Morgan. You could go with Morgan as well.
Arlene was saying the same thing. She was saying
Oh,
this that she too likes the name, and
oh,
she wanted to
thank
know
you.
if you were named after someone in your family, maybe.
That's a great question. Well, my background is kind of like split half and half. I'm Hungarian and Ukrainian, and then I'm
Mm,
very Scottish and Irish. And so I think it was more the Celtic side, but there's no one in the family aside
no.
from me. But maybe we could start it as a tradition moving forward.
All right. I know you're going on a trip
I am.
back home to your little town.
I'm excited. I'm emotionally preparing myself for -40.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. Oh goodness. All right, so we can say goodbye. Thank you everyone
Okay.
for tuning in, and you just
Thank
stay on
you.
for a hot minute because even though I close out, we'll be in the studio ourselves. So
Great.
we're saying goodbye to Morgana.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and being part of this with us before the holidays. Happy holidays.
I know. It's sweet. And tomorrow night, before I take a break, Brittany Bristow will be on. So I'm excited that she's coming on. She has a new movie that's coming out. She's gonna do Rama drama. So we're gonna talk with her. She has lots of energy, so I'm excited.
That's
And
awesome.
good night, everyone.
Good night.